What's up, everyone, and welcome to our second video on how to research corporations. This time around, we're going to look at company 10Ks and annual reports, and we're going to get into what those are and everything real quick, okay? This is the introductory video. It's one of 5, specifically on 10Ks and annual reports. This is the introductory video, so we're going to keep it real simple. The other 4 videos are also very simple, but we're going to look at 4 different corporations. So it's going to be 1 corporation per video, and we're going to go either through the 10K report or the annual report for those 4 corporations in the 4 other videos. Okay, but for this one, we're going to keep it real simple. This is real basic. This is the introduction. So we're going to answer questions like, what are these reports? What are we looking for? And what do we do with the information? Okay, my name is Rick Urrutia. I am co-host of We Rise Fighting Labor podcast, and I got my master's degree in labor studies at the University of Massachusetts, which is where I sharpened my skill on corporate research and where I also realized that I would love to share this information because I think it should be accessible to all. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit. Now, the 10Ks and the annual reports, this is what they have in common. They have a ton of information, all right? Sometimes they're 100 pages long, sometimes they're 400 pages long, but they have a ton of information. The 10K report is a report that the corporation submits to the Securities and Exchange Commission once a year. They are legally required to do that, and they are legally required to disclose certain information within the 10K report. And on the other side of that, the annual report is something that the corporation releases to its investors and potential investors. Okay, now both of these documents are very long. The corporation has a little more control over what it presents in the annual report, so it always looks a little glossier. The 10K is very boring looking. It's like typewriter font. But both of them have a ton of information, including information about production and operations, in other words, how things are done, information about fleets, facilities, and properties, in other words, tangible things, information about competition within the industry, its own finances, in other words, profits, revenues, debt, tax information, stuff like that, business strategy, unionization, how many union members it has in its shops, in which shops, which union, when the collective bargaining agreement expires, stuff like that. It also has major legal and environmental issues included. And what they mean by major is legal and environmental issues that could potentially affect the value of the stock. So it's not every single lawsuit that's filed against the company. It's just major legal and environmental ones that could potentially affect the value of the stock. Okay, now again, the annual reports are published by the corporations themselves for the benefits of their investors and potential investors. And again, they have more control over how the information is presented. All right, and so usually it looks a little glossier. And this is the cover of the 4 companies that we're going to look at. So these are their most recent annual reports as of the creation of this video. All right, so we're going to look at UPS, Starbucks, Amazon, and CNH Industrial because these 4 corporations have workers actively engaged in a struggle, or maybe in the case of UPS, about to engage in a better contract struggle. So I wanted to provide something that could potentially be useful, okay? So those are the annual reports. That's what the cover of those looks like. And as I mentioned before, the 10Ks are a lot more boring looking. It's like typewriter font, you know? This is what it looks like. And this is what gets submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The one exception that I'd like to point out and that you can clearly see here is the 20F form. Now, this one is submitted by CNH Industrial because it's based outside of the US, and that's basically the difference, right? 10K forms are for corporations that are based in the US, and 20F forms, which contain a lot of the same information, is for corporations that are based outside of the US, and that's the case with CNH Industrial. Okay, so there you have it. That's what they look like next to each other. And so, you know, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for the weak spots. We're going to be looking for the soft underbellies, or we're going to be looking for the jugulars of these corporations, okay? Because we want to throw a wrench in the works. We want to cost them their precious profits. That is the goal of the research here today, and I'm not going to pretend one way or the other about it. We want to cost them profits because, as Bill Haywood put it, a capitalist has no heart, but shoot him in the wallet and you draw blood. So go ahead and channel that as you go through these reports, as you listen to these videos, okay? These are the four corporations we're going to be looking at: the annual reports, the 10K and 20F. So, okay? Now, when I say we're going to be looking at them, we're not going to be reading these like books. Again, these things are like 100, 2, 3, 400 pages long. So do not read this like a book. Okay, you're not doing anyone a service by doing that. You're going to get really bored. You're not going to understand it. And I just say that from my own personal experience. We are looking for very specific information. So we're going to use keywords like this to find that information. Okay, so if you are trying to read this like cover to cover, you're not doing it right. You're honestly wasting a good chunk of time. And my advice is to check out these keywords, gather a few of your coworkers and research and highlight together. Also, keep track of the research that you've already done, share it with others. Keep your research simple always. Share this video and invite others to research, or even just start a research committee at your union or your workplace, and I would be happy to talk to you about how to do that and help out with that, okay? So before I really dig in though, I wanted to point something out, that the information that we're getting is directly from the company, all right? In other words, we're getting it directly from the horse's mouth. Now, the reason I want to mention that is because it makes our information legitimate. Okay, it gives credibility to our information. That way we can't be accused of getting our information from some biased news source or some YouTube conspiracy theorist. And honestly, people, give it up with the conspiracy theories. Like, this is public information. You can connect the dots with this as far as ownership, as far as money, as far as politics. It's all in public information. You do not need conspiracy theories. You do not need QAnon. You do not need Illuminati shit, people. Like, this information is all in public information, and quite frankly, it's damning enough to take down a corporation or rattle capitalism a little bit. So focus on this. This is the same information that's used by journalists, by stock market analysts, by union research departments. How do I know? Because I've worked there. Yes, this is the same exact information. Again, I think everyone should have access to this skill to know how to look at these documents and look at them critically for the empowerment of the community and for the empowerment of workers. So that's really what we're doing here. So union research departments, historians look at this information. Basically, other very, very, very important and credible people look at this information, okay? So this information that we're getting and that we're looking at is legit, okay? It's also public information. And the reason I wanted to say that is because as long as it's public information, man, you can share it, you can post it, you can write a research report with all your findings, you can write a press release, you can write placards and flyers with post the information all over them. You can put it in art and do some culture jamming. Basically, the point of saying that it's public information is that you don't need permission to use it. You don't need anyone's permission to use it, okay? So the final thing I wanted to mention about this information before we really start digging in and plugging away with those keywords, the final thing I wanted to mention is that this is all these 10K reports and annual reports are available for all publicly traded corporations. So yes, we're here in this case, we're going to look at UPS, Amazon, CNH, and Starbucks, but this information is available for Union Pacific, for CSX, for Geo, for ExxonMobil, for CoreCivic, for Raytheon, Boeing, Caterpillar, GM, Ford, Nestle, United Airlines. Shout out to my former coworkers, right? All this information is available. All this information and all these documents are available for all these corporations. So we're just going to use these four as an example, but keep mental note of that and be sure to do your own research on whatever corporation you are looking for. Okay, now what kind of information are we looking for specifically? Okay, Agitprop, okay, agitational propaganda. And what we mean by that is agitational as in it highlights an injustice to stir emotion or to get people to act. Okay, that's the agitational part of agitprop. And by propaganda, all it means is that it informs or it or it exposes an injustice. And it exposes information that we got from our research. All right. And when we're getting our research from the horse's mouth directly from the company, it's legit. So it has to be contested with. So agitational propaganda is very effective. So let's check out some examples. This is possibly the classic example, right? The CEO of XYZ Corporation made $250 million base pay last year while paying its workers $2 an hour. Let's go on strike for better wages. Okay, the classic example of agitational propaganda. Another clear one, right? XYZ Corporation made $10 billion in profits, and the company executives want to eliminate the healthcare of the workers. Picket line today, right? Again, it exposes an injustice. It shows the contradictions. It agitates. It gets people to act towards something. In this case, a picket line. In the first case, a strike. Here, and this is the third one, right? The company says it's green, but it's contaminating our local drinking water. So come to a union meeting with environmentalists. Okay, so that's the kind of information that we can find, that we can fuel with the information that we're gonna search through these 10K and annual reports. Okay, the other type of information that we're looking for is tactical information. And I'm using these images from Empire Strikes Back because I think it really channels a good spirit here, man. If you remember this scene, the Battle of Hoth, you know, where the rebel fighters are flying around the legs of the AT-AT or AT-AT, I don't know, man. I don't know what they're really called. The big metal cows with the cannons on its mouth, you know? They're like flying around the legs of these big metal cows, and they tie a rope around it just to bring it down. So I hope you channel that energy because, you know, sometimes it feels like we're up against these monsters, but they can't be taken down. They can't, and that's the point of us doing this research, is to find the pressure points, is to find the soft underbellies, is to find the jugulars in these corporations so we can take them down. So we can put pressure on them so that they will sit at the table with workers, so that they will clean up their act, so that we can change, so that we can rattle capitalism and corporations, quite frankly. So that's the whole point of this research, is to find the weaknesses in the process of production of these corporations, all right? Just to rattle them around, man. Workers, you have the power to do this, all right? So that's the point of the tactical information, and couple of examples of what that looks like, okay? I've divided it into two types of tactical information, all right? One type is outside of your shop floor, all right? So when we're looking for information, we're looking to find other facilities or other points of production where workers can also organize and carry out a workplace action to cost the company money and build power for all. In other words, build power for themselves and build power for us, you know, whoever us is, whoever we the researchers are. Okay, so we're looking for information outside of the facility, and we're looking for information inside the facility as well. All right, let me give this one example as far as inside the facility. I used to work at a meatpacking company, and I was a union rep there. And at a certain point, the union leadership wanted to organize a contract campaign. Unfortunately, it was 2 weeks before the contract expired, so there wasn't much that could be done. But I decided to start with the workers who stunned the cattle on the kill floor, because it was only like 5 of them. And mind you, this was a meatpacking facility of about 1,500 workers. But these 5 workers, the ones that stunned the cattle, they had tremendous power, because if they put their stun gun down and they put their hands in their pockets, man, that's it for production at that plant. It just stops, because the work of these particular workers, the work of these 5 little workers is so critical. So when I started organizing this contract campaign 2 weeks before the expiration of the contract, I started with them to make sure they were on board. And so I could communicate to other workers and let them know, yo, you know, the workers who stun the cattle, they're on board and they're ready to shut this down. Let's keep it going and like build the solidarity and get a better contract. So all that to say is that some jobs within the workplace are very strategic, very important for our tactics, because they are a legitimate pressure point. Okay, so we have those types. So that's the type of information that we're looking for, both inside and outside the shop, is pressure points like that. Okay, and we are going to do that right away. We're going to start looking for some information and plugging in the keywords From that document I showed you previously, we're going to start plugging in some of that information into the 10Ks and annual reports. And the first corporation we're going to look at is called Amazon. Some of y'all may have heard of it. That'll be video 2 of 5.